Eddie soldiers. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Smash. Let's get the show on the road. My light's off. Hold on. Is that better? That's better. So, love triangles. Whether you love them or you hate them, you sure as hell know about them because they are a staple to any romance subplot of pretty much any book that I have read in basically the last 2 decades of my life. Yes, I am older than I look. I know this orange juice commercial face gives you the impression that I still need to be carded at every restaurant that I go to, but I'm not like other teens. I'm almost 30. And whether you're new or old to my videos, you can see just from behind me, I am a huge fan of YA books and fantasy books and romantic fantasy books. And it was nigh impossible to escape a love triangle of any YA book in the late 2000s or early 2010s. Back in February, I did a video on romance trope jail where I talked about a bunch of romance tropes that I think deserve to go to jail. And love triangles was in that presentation. The reason that I personally do not like love triangles is because I find they're very forced and overdone. It's usually the second book that a secondary love interest gets introduced for the drama and the tension when it's really like, what is this guy doing here? Like, how did he get here? And for the 2 guys that are vying over the affections of the girl, I'm usually like, why do you like her? Like, it's literally they're just introduced and then they're like, oh, she's hot. I guess I'm gonna like fight to the death for her? That seems like you need some therapy, my guys. And because there's multiple love interest options, fans tend to attach themselves to one or the other and then can get really nasty towards one another or the author if the author writes the main character getting together with like the one that they didn't like. Ideally, what love triangles are supposed to do is to add tension and choice to the story. The 2 characters vying for one character's affections, so you have that sense of competition and the mystery of like, ooh, you know, which one's she gonna pick? Because monogamy is the goal here, and that is the goal of love triangles. One character is supposed to end up with only one person, but usually each partner appeals to a different side of the main character. Like you're seeing aspects of your life reflected back at you and the options that you could have depending on what path in life you go or the person that you go with. Also, triangle is a bit of a misnomer because it's always 2 people with one person. It's never an actual triangle. Like if you're gonna say your book has a love triangle in it, I want to see some isosceles action up in this bitch, okay? So I guess this whole video is a bit of a misnomer, but it's fine. I'm sure you're smart enough to use critical thinking skills. I've noticed lately this trend is dying out a little bit, and if it is being used, like in some of the books we're going to talk about today, it is being used in a new, innovative, or slightly twisted way. But I'd also like to give the caveat that I already did a video on my favorite book thruples, so I will not be doing any book that canonically has an actual love triangle. I will only be talking about a love V. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in as we talk about 6 books that I think do a love triangle the right way. The first one is the one that inspired this entire video because I recently finished The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten and I was like, oh damn, there is a love V that I love to see. This follows Lore, who's a drug smuggler with a power over death magic. When her powers are revealed, she is taken to the court of the Sainted King and basically conscripted into helping figure out why all this death magic is seeping out of the city, and she is paired with a presque mort death monk who also has death magic, also tangling with the son of the Sainted King because the Sun Prince knows something about maybe what's hiding in the catacombs beneath the city. First of all, phenomenal book. I loved how dark and grim this got, and there is a huge emphasis on religious trauma because there is a very prevalent and zealous church in this story that I think she did a phenomenal job writing. But what would otherwise be a typical love triangle? Is she going to get swept up in the glittering nature of court and a handsome prince, or is she going to be more true to who she is and choose somebody who has a similar type of death magic than she does? But something Hannah Witten does in this book is show how messy that connections between people can be. Lore has been looking at Gabe for a little while, and honestly, if Gabe looked like how she is described, like, I'd be looking too. Damn, that boy is fine. They have a couple of close calls, and the physical tension between them is so good. And originally when she meets Bastian, the Sun Prince, she doesn't like him, and they end up having to work together, and through that, she realizes that, like, oh, he's not who I think he is, and scraping away that defense makes her realize that she is actually drawn to him, but even she doesn't know in what capacity. She just knows that she's drawn to him. Plus, Gabe has like an ex-partner in the castle that he's interacting with, and so Lore feels bad for maybe falling in love while his other partner obviously like still has feelings for him. And then she also feels like she's going against herself if she allows herself to be attracted to or be friends with a prince, because it goes against everything that she's grown up to believe. But she still feels frustration and, minor spoiler, betrayal towards kind of the guy that she first had those feelings for. So it's all these themes of betrayal and redemption and realizing that people aren't who you think they are. And so having that realization, like breaking connections between people. I think this dynamic was so well done. Get it, girl, enter your villain era. Now, I, for one, have found myself many a time extraordinarily frustrated with a main character who is whining over how she doesn't know which person to pick and they're both so different, which at that point, if you are truly drawn to two people and you can't figure out which one you're gonna pick, maybe try polyamory. I don't know, maybe you might like it. But if poly isn't an option for you, I would say all love triangles can be solved with either a duel or a threesome. However, the love triangle in this next book would only be a duel because I'm talking about Defend the Dawn by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the sequel to Defy the Night, which is a fantasy Robin Hood retelling that follows Tessa and West, two smugglers who are trying to steal and distribute a medicine to their kingdom that has fallen under a mysterious magical plague. In Defy the Night, Tessa and Coric get together, disguises are blown, the kingdom is in turmoil, and in the sequel, Tessa and Coric join a Captain Blakemore as part of an emissary crew to go to a different kingdom and request aid. This book explored guilt and loyalty to a degree that I have not seen in a love triangle ever. I don't know. The getting together part of a relationship is the easy part. Like, a lot of happily ever afters are like the two characters kiss and are now boyfriend and girlfriend and that's it. They've won. And it's like, no. That's the first step of a relationship. Now you have to like be together in a relationship. And this book really puts the ship in relationship because we are on a merchant vessel for this entire story. Coric was not who he said he was when he and Tessa first met, and now the sense of duty to the royal castle and like all the nobles is really getting to him, and Tessa doesn't know how to act around him anymore, and she also feels like this isn't what she signed up for. And Coric has this whole internalized guilt of like dragging Tessa into his world where she doesn't belong, and he wants to like set her free to like, you know, be with other people, but then at the same time feels very selfishly like they should be together because of their shared past. Whereas Captain Blakemore, our new love interest, is exactly what Coric used to be pretending to be. So Tessa is drawn to him and she feels bad about it because she knows that he's using that connection to drive a wedge between her and Coric, but then she doesn't know if like she and Coric should actually be together. Tension immaculate. This goes over the changes that relationships can go through, and also the changes that a person can go through, and how maybe a relationship that you were perfect in a couple years ago is no longer what is actually good for you, and maybe it's actually holding you back. But at the same time, a distraction is maybe showing you how you actually need to better communicate with your partner. This book is very unique in that regard, and I cannot wait to see who is gonna do what in the third book. Number 3 is an author that you probably already know. No, I'm not gonna do that too. You've heard about Clockwork Princess being a perfect love triangle from me and a fucking million other people, so like, we're not gonna talk about it. Just, if you haven't read this already, why not? Get on it. But I am going to talk about something very similar because I think the love triangle from Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. Wait, that's not this book. Chain of Thorns. This one's Chain of Iron. So after the events of Chain of Thorns, Cordelia believes that James does not love her, and when Matthew asks to court her, she says yes. But it turns out that James was lying and he's actually under a curse and he does really love her, but he can't tell her that because he wants her to be happy, and she and Matthew are going to be happy, but she still has feelings for James, and oh my god, it's a whole mess. All 3 people want each other to be happy and are like trying to not impede because they love each other. But what this also pulls off is it pulls off a miscommunication trope, and that's also something that I think deserves to go in trope jail. I've said before that if 2 characters getting together in a room and having one conversation is the only thing keeping your plotline going, that is not good writing. That being said, these three people really need to get into a room and talk about their feelings. But because of a series of misunderstandings and rumors and poorly timed intrusions, God, the pining is real in this one. So the love triangle throughout this series shows a more melancholy and sad and sacrificial type of love triangle. Like, Matthew and James are not trying to physically fight over Cordelia. I honestly think Cordelia could kick both their asses, but because of the friendship and shared experiences that Cordelia and Matthew have, like, they're trying something out, because really Cordelia believes that she was betrayed and that James doesn't love her and so that she should be moving on. Whereas James doesn't want to impede on Matthew's happiness because he feels like he's holding him back. Though a theme that I really like that goes throughout these books is, especially by the end of it, you don't need another person to be happy and to complete you, and you can still live a wonderful, fulfilling life. But it's also nice if someone is there with you, and it doesn't have to be the person that you were expecting. This is another love triangle where I'm like, have you heard of polyamory? You know, although apparently, according to this, shadow hunters are a little bit behind the times. You've been looking better in black than the widows of your enemies since 1234, okay? Pull yourselves together. The next wonderfully whimsical tale that flips the love triangle trope on its head is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. Now, I posted this one on TikTok a little while ago, and a lot of people were like, it's not a real love triangle. Well, you're not my real dad, so I'm adding this to this list. Our main character, Mina, is sacrificed to the sea god in hopes of appeasing him so that the storms that are ravaging her town will stop. But instead of dying, she gets swept away to the spirit realm, where the sea god is real, but he's also under a curse. So she teams up with some spirits to find out how this happened and figure out a way to break the bond that they both now have. Axie may have not even meant to write this as a love triangle, but I think as a love triangle, this is a really cool book. Literally one of our love interests who Mina is bonded to, she's able to talk to him, is through these kind of dream sequences that they share. But there's another handsome spirit man who is very pessimistic, but he also has a connection to the sea god. So they're linked in a triangle sort of way, but it's just a different type of triangle. It's an acute triangle. That's a geometry term. An acute triangle is short and then too long, right? Editing Rachel, is that right? Well, like, yeah, I guess. This shows that three people are connected in a triangular manner, but there is still a type of connection and understanding beneath it all. Whereas usually a main character being torn between two love interests means that, like, both of them speak to different sides of her, but in this case, it's more that they both speak to different sides of the same world. If Mina chooses to be with the sea god, that means that her home will be saved, and likely this curse will be broken, and while she feels like she doesn't love him, she feels like she probably could become friendly or fall in love with him in the future, and it would be a quieter and more sacrificial way to live in death, you get it. But if she goes with Shin, she gets to see the wonder and the magic that he sees in this beautiful Spirited Away-esque afterlife. This whole book is just a wonderful, whimsical, magical, colorful read, and I would highly recommend it. Now, you might have noticed that up until now, all the books that I've been mentioning are books that have come out within the last, like, 5 years, less than that, probably 2 years, 3 years, what is time anymore? Because the majority of love triangle trope examples that we all love to make fun of are from books from the late 2000s or the early 2010s, whereas now there's enough of that base for authors to pull and pick and choose and transform it into something new. So this next book came as a bit of a surprise to even me when I was writing out this list. This book is 14 freaking years old. This book is in grade 9. How did that happen? I'm talking about one of my favorite book series of all time. It's Strange Angels by Lily St. Croix. Our main character, Drew, and her father are monster hunters, but when her father gets turned into one of these monsters and dies, she is suddenly put on the run because all these people are coming after her, and there's vampire cabals, and she might be part vampire, and it's a wild ride. And as was classic in the time in which this was published, there is a love triangle between a vampire and a werewolf. Wait, don't leave. I swear that it's good. Our werewolf love interest becomes a werewolf during the series by accident, and he doesn't start off by coming in as this, like, swaggery, strong lover boy character. He kind of accidentally gets swept in, and then they're both friendly-ish, but are, like, clinging to one another as the only thing they remember from before their world got turned upside down. But at the same time, our sexy vampire is very different than a lot of these vampire heartthrobs from the paranormal craze of the 2000s. First of all, I would say that he acts his age, and he is a senior citizen. I think I mentioned this in my video on books I love with tropes I hate, because our character Kristoff is like hundreds of years old and Drew is 16, and Lily St. Croix goes into the dynamic of what it's like to be interested in somebody who is so much older than you and so much more otherworldly than you. Can you hear my voice going? I haven't talked this much in weeks. I think it's calls for another Diet Coke. I regret to inform you all that I don't have any more Diet Coke. I only have Coke Zero. You're gonna get 2 ASMR moments in today's video. Ooh, I'm in a love triangle with sugar-free sodas, apparently. Kristoff is trying to teach Drew about being a vampire, so he's appealing to her vampire side and like her mother's family, who she never knew. But at the same time, because he's so much older, she is very conflicted because she's like, damn, he's hot, and he's like training her. But she's also really weirded out over the fact that, like, he knew her mother and he's been around for so long, like, accrued wealth. Spoiler for the end of the series, you can skip ahead like 20 seconds if you don't want to hear it. By the end of the series, she doesn't choose either of them, and I think that's the right choice for her. She does have a chat with her vampire, like, hey, if I'm gonna live forever, you know, why do we have to do a thing now? Maybe we can do a thing in like 30 years. And he's like, you know what, respect. I love this series for a variety of reasons, and I respect the fact that Lily St. Croix was saying all this 14 damn years ago. And lastly is a book that truly embodies, girl, you do not need a man, but at the same time, if you want one, like, I'm gonna be on the sidelines with bated breath and a bowl of popcorn trying to figure out who the heck is gonna be Endgame? It was one of my favorite books I read last year. It is the romantic, lyrical, and whimsical retelling of the Chinese myth of Shangge and Hao Yi, and that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This follows, believe it or not, Daughter of the Moon Goddess Xing Yin. When she unexpectedly comes into her powers, she must flee and runs to the Celestial Kingdom, where she joins their army and befriends the prince, and eventually has an opportunity to win a favor in hopes of freeing her mother from her moon prison. So we have a lovely love triangle between Xing Yin and the general of the army, as well as the crown prince of the Celestial Kingdom. And let me reiterate, this bitch does not need a man. Holy shit, this girl can talk to dragons. Like, she is slinging around a legendary jade bow and arrow and just like taking out monsters like you would not believe. She has all this shared history with the prince, and he would be able to protect her from the royal politicking. Every time that they have met, it's been in solitude and peace, and he's very beautiful. And I love a beautiful man. But with the general, she can go on adventures and missions and be more free, and who treats her like she will not break, and ultimately trusts her to have his back in matters of war and the heart. So yes, both of these men speak to a different part of her, and she's not sure which way that she's going to go, but she's also like in the middle of her adventure and in the middle of what she thinks she's born to do. She doesn't have time to settle down right now. And I respect the hell out of the fact that she's like, I can't choose. I'm like literally trying to hold off a civil war and like talk to dragons, okay? I'm busy. At this point, I don't really care who she picks. I'm on Team Xing Yin, and that's all that matters. That's that on that. For anyone counting, we've talked about 6 books, my camera's overheated 3 times, and I finished 2 diet sodas. And of course, this video is only the beginning. Please leave down below if you yourself have a love triangle that you would recommend. For example, all these books had heterosexual couples, and I think that's a damn shame. But at the same time, I personally have not read a lot of queer literature that has love triangles. Is this a straight person thing? Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. The straights are at it again. Y'all know I say that as not a straight person, but I cosplayed as one for a long time. People are weird, man. Love is weird. You never know who you're gonna fall in love with at what time in your life, and sometimes love triangles exist. I myself have even been in a couple of love V's before, and I found that the best way to get out of them is for someone to break up with you. That solves that problem real fast. Look at me out here bragging that I've had 2 men vying for my affections, but like, have you seen me? I'm a delight. I can hear the construction starting up again next door, like last week, so we're gonna wrap this video up. You know where to click to like the video, you know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!